What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host that is gonna eat some sushi today, Zach. Today's subreddit is r/IDoWorkHereLady. Alright, this story's called Don't Judge, Just Talk. So I've posted before, and this will be my second post, so yay me. Anyways, introductions I think. My name is Mooney, not my real name, but I use it a lot and a lot of friends call me that now. English is my native language, but I also speak German fluently, so I apologize, but a lot of this is just translation in my head, so I do profoundly apologize if my writing seems off. Anyways, to the story. Now, as I mentioned before in the r/IDoWorkHereLady, I am doing an apprenticeship in carpentry, but have a lot of side jobs for my income as well, which all have great stories, I think. Or I just like the sound of my own voice, so it could be that too. I try not to exaggerate and keep it all down to earth. Now back to the story. I also work as a photographer and did have a few gigs here and there. Model agencies, brands, weddings, just random stuff with good pay, I think. Keeps me afloat with my expensive hobby. Anyway, I had this client who messaged me on Instagram, asking for a meeting for a photo shoot for herself, daughter, and friend, so I of course said sure. I'm free on Thursday, and we arranged the time and the normal stuff for it. Now, I was quite scruffy and had to rush since I was in the workshop and still had my work clothes on me and had no time to change. No, I still can't drive, nor is it that important in Germany since you can get anywhere on public transport. Well, nearly anywhere. Now, I arrived in the photo studio, which kinda is mine now since I've rented it out so much. This lady comes in and here it goes. Here's the cast. There's me, obviously. Karen, the entitled woman who thinks she's better than anyone. Model agents, who I know quite well now. Model, who I'm good friends with. Story. So I set up the meeting with chairs and a table and some water. Then she walked in. Well, walking is a bit of an extreme word. She kinda strutted in like she owned the place. Hello, Miss Karen. You're here for the meeting, right? Of course, but who are you? I'm meeting with a professional photographer, not a low worker. I knew he was gonna be late. What was I thinking on taking my daughter's advice? Teenagers nowadays, I guess. I nod silently, listening to her ranting, and I softly reply, I'm the photographer, miss. You see, you? Ha! As if. Boy, you may want to get your mental health checked, because the photographer I'm meeting you couldn't afford. And no way he would wear something like that. She points at my clothes. What are you, a wannabe photographer? As if. Kinda upset because I love my work and always feel very, very insecure about all of that stuff. As I was saying, I got off my work and couldn't change clothes. I'm your photographer for— I don't believe you. I want to speak to your boss. Have him fire you. Yes. You see, I'm a very famous model, and she couldn't get another sentence out as the door opened up again and modeling agent and model came in, both quite famously known around my area, and greeted me politely. You know this scruffy dude? Why, yes, he's my friend and photographer. Him? A photographer? That I don't laugh. I mean, look at him. Look at him. All scruffy and dirty. Look at me. I'm a bloody model from XYZ Model Agency. I earn good money and don't need my time wasted by this insolent child. Yes, I agree with her. I am a child, I guess. I shaved my little beard I had off the day before since it was itching. And people always tell me, with a beard, I look like 23. And without it, I look 15. I'm 18, so I get it, but still. Rude, right? Miss, I work at XYZ Model Agency, and I've definitely never seen you around. He is one of the best photographers we have. Sure, he may not look the part, but he has talent. Me, of course, being me, starts blushing because I can't take compliments at all. As if. I know the owner of Model Agency and will have all three of you sacked. I was sweating bullets now. If I got sacked from this agency, I'd lose a lot of my income. And I know the owner as well, and all his friends. And since I'm the owner, I definitely don't know you. Then it started, the shouting. which frightens the hell out of me. Most models and friends, coworkers, etc. know I get into a nervous wreck when they're shouting. So the model started comforting me whilst the modeling agent started glaring at the woman.
You are not the owner and I know him. I am his girlfriend and…
Karen couldn't speak further as modeling agent flowered at her. Are you saying I'm cheating on my wife? If you do not believe me, then here is my business card. But now, get the hell out of here. We will not ever hire you. And I for sure know he won't take your contract, he points at me, because you're a rude bimbo, impolite and a menace. Now out! The modeling agent thrusts his business card out to her, showing her the photo of himself on the card and then pointing at the door. The woman started sputtering but left. Is this the end of the story? No. After all that ordeal, I got comforted by them and they said they'll do the business meeting some other time. A few days have passed and I go back to work in carpentry. As I was sanding something down, we heard a cough at the entrance of the workshop. Well, look here. It's Karen again. Now, since I'm on very good terms with my boss and we tell each other stories, I told him the story on what happened and I started shaking. My boss saw this and looked at her and then at me. He had the look of, "This here?" And I nodded slowly and nervous, a lump forming in my throat because, well, I already knew what was happening. So he went over to Karen and, well, all hell broke loose, in a quiet manner to start with. Here's the cast. There's me, of course. Karen, mean-ass woman again. My boss. Coworker. How can we help you, miss?
I'd like a table done. Fast. When is the next opportunity?
In 3 weeks. We are fully booked out.
What? No, I'll let you know I'm a very high-up person and need this done as soon as possible.
And as I said, in 3 weeks. But also, we will not take the contract since it's all up to the worker. He then pointed at me. I gulped slightly and the woman looked at me. She then finally realized who I was and started looking at my boss.
I know him? No, I won't have my stuff touched by this menace. You need to fire him immediately. He is incompetent and is going behind your back and working for someone else.
Oh, I know what happened, and I also know that he is the most competent person here who can do those sorts of tables, since I have no experience with those tables and the coworker also doesn't have a clue. Which was true. It was an old table with a few designs in it where you really have to be careful on sanding it, so I was happy that I wasn't useless.
I don't care. He is rude and young. How dare you hire someone like that?
All the commotion brought in the other workers from the other businesses in the same building. One of them, a friend of mine who is 6 foot tall, muscular, and had a ton of tattoos, looked at me and then at her, who was pointing a finger at me all through her rants and then back at me. Finally, he turned to the woman and took a step forward. We will call my friend now. Is there a problem, friend? Because you're being awfully rude to my friends. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Unless you still have business. He looked at my boss and he shook his head, saying no. He then slowly ushered the woman out as she paled, seeing a tall, muscular hunk of a man standing over her mere 5 foot. She rushed out and I've never heard from her since. Moral of the story? Never judge a person by the looks, because I could have easily gotten her a discount for her table if she worked with me. Got my modeling agent a slight discount while they refurbished their office, so it wouldn't have been a problem. Wow, so apparently she was trying to make it in the modeling industry and she essentially blacklisted herself in her attempt. Isn't that ironic? This story's called, Ma'am, I assure you, I am the administrator here. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. I've debated on sharing this, as there's no way I or my site can be identified, but the environment in which it occurred has a very hush-hush reputation. For about 10 years, I worked in a community-based mental health and social work, specifically as a staff. and then a manager and then administrator of 2 residential long-term recovery care facilities for folks with long-term, severe, and persistent mental illness. We were somewhere between a halfway house and an adult foster care facility. Homes and communities converted to have 6 to a dozen or more bedrooms, a kitchen, living room, and office space for staff and MedPass. I was in my mid-20s, and the thing about the scene is that the average turnover for staff is 8 weeks. Most staff burn out, as working day in and day out with difficult residents isn't the easiest job, and the pay isn't great. Just lasting a year pretty much makes you management material, and I did it for almost a decade, so that by the time I was 27, I was the administrator of 2 sites and managed most of the touring, admissions, intake, and discipline, write-ups, and evictions. Not everyone takes the kid in the blue jeans and Mastodon t-shirt seriously, which was fine with me. The story begins. I did your usual admissions tour with a mom and her son, as she was trying to get him out of her home as he was smoking a lot of pot, drinking nearly every night to blackout drunk, and generally being verbally and physically abusive to her and their family. We have a lot of rules about living in community with other folks in recovery, and both my homes were dry housing. No alcohol, no weed, no prescription drugs unless they were passed by staff at set med times. No getting drunk and coming home to sleep it off, etc. There were also pretty strict rules about how you treat the other residents for obvious reasons. During the tour, the son is already being abusive towards his mother and rude to me and my house manager, the guy who reported to me and handled some of the day-to-day stuff while I was at the other side. My house manager, Lars, not his real name, was a little older, probably mid-50s at the time, a little taller than me, and had that cool dad quality that I needed in a house manager. Since I had to be the hard-ass, "These are the rules, you must abide" type, it helped to have someone who was a little more friendly and could be the good cop and soften the blow while still saying, "Hey, hope he's the boss," if residents didn't like something. Mom took an instant liking to Lars as we went through the tour, and it was pretty obvious by the end of the tour and start of the interview that she thought he was the admin and I was just some staff, as she was ignoring some of my questions to her and her son during the tour. We did the interview in a private living room setting where the potential resident told me straight up he wasn't planning on quitting drinking, smoking pot, and committing various petty crimes, which pretty much tanked any chance he'd have at residency. Lars played the usual good cop while we made notes and did follow-up questions, and Mom seemed to have the idea that her son was a shoo-in since the house
Took in addicts and adult delinquents and dealt with them and all that.
I had made a few statements about proper behavior in the community and residents that Mom seemed to laugh at.
Oh, he's not gonna clean his room once a week. He's not gonna do his chores. I guess you'll have to do it for him.
She had that weird, smug air of superiority until we went back to my office to wrap up, and she watched me as I took my seat behind the big desk.
Hang on, what are you doing? Why are you sitting in his
gesturing to Lars, who is in another chair next to my desk.
Seat?
I'm not. I'm sitting in my seat. This is my desk. My office. I'm the administrator here.
No, you aren't. You're just some staff. Lars is in charge. This decision is up to him, and he's gonna let my son move in this week.
Ma'am, I assure you, I'm the administrator here. Your son won't be able to move in this week. I don't have any open beds at this time and don't anticipate an empty bed until at least 2 months from now. And I already have a wait list of about a dozen folks, all of whom showed better manners and seemed more than capable of following some basic rules about respecting their peers in the house here. Dookie popped off. I'm not sure where she got the idea that we'd just be able to move her kid in and move someone else out of the room they had. What was even weirder, she hadn't started any of the paperwork to get her son considered for disability. He didn't even have a proper diagnosis of any sort of severe, persistent mental illness, which was usually usually required to get on disability, and by extension, the state federal health insurance that paid their housing. I'm not even sure why our director scheduled the tour and interview, given there were about a dozen missing pieces of paperwork necessary for him to be considered for housing. It got worse from there, and the play-by-play boiled down to her refusing to believe someone about her son's age was the head of the site, answering only to the Tri-County Residential Director for the agency and then the treatment director and CEO. Meanwhile, the son is brooding, kinda quiet, as he's realizing that he'll probably be living at home with his mom for a while longer, and wouldn't be getting away from her to a new place where he'd be able to get away with drinking and smoking and behaving poorly. She wound up lodging a formal complaint, which kinda melted away when Lars backed my side of events. He was the good cop, not the stupid cop, and he didn't want someone this difficult in the house either. There were a few of these interactions each year. Moms and dads, or grandpas, or guardians who thought we were some sort of not quite jail where they just dropped off the kids they'd failed to raise properly. I don't say that to crap on individuals with true, severe, persistent mental health issues, and obviously some of these folks had issues, but it was always a weird blend of sad, frustrating when these parents seemed to think we just moved them in that afternoon without a thorough vetting process. That seems like a really good place that does some good things, but obviously we don't know the full case. But from what OP says, sounds like a nice place. But it seems they only accept people that truly want to be helped, maybe. And that kid was unapologetic in his lack of anything, really. This story's called What Gave It Away? Not me, but my wife. She drove for a large metropolitan transportation agency. She's driving a bus, pulls into a stop, and a man boards her bus, looks at her in the driver's seat, full bus driver uniform, and asks, "Do you work for the large metropolitan transportation agency?" Like, no, I just stole this bus and a uniform so I can get to work, but I thought I'd stop and pick others up while I'm at it. They breed, vote, work? How? The reason why there exist so many dummies out there is because there are so many dummies out there for the other dummies to reproduce with. Simple math, man, simple math. Which is what they're unable to do, right? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.